Hello and welcome to the Pages to Pixels podcast, where we talk about new movies every week. I'm Rohan.
I'm Keerthana.
And today we're going to be talking about the new Malayalam movie, Aavesham. Basically what it's about is three teenagers who reach Bangalore for their engineering degree and get involved in a fight with seniors. They find a local gangster named Ranga to help them take revenge.
What did you think? General thoughts?
I did not enjoy this movie. Story-wise, it's pretty paper thin. Like that logline does sum up the movie very well. And I think a lot of your enjoyment of the movie is going to depend on, do you like the action scenes? And then does the comedy work for you?
Right.
For me, I think the action was fine. It didn't stand out. A lot of Indian movies that I've seen have kind of this level of action. And then I didn't think the comedy worked for me.
Right. This is definitely a very subjective film. I think it's very localized. Like it's meant to be satire. And
Satire of what exactly?
Just the concept of like these characters in films that are like all powerful and then they like play up like college students as important people.
Okay.
It's a trope. And like that's the reason the movie worked for me, is because the play on the trope worked for me. I thought it was a fun watch. Like you said, I agree, the plot was basically non-existent, and it relied very heavily on the performance of the actors. Fahadh Faasil was good, I thought, but the three kids who played the college characters, they were not great.
I didn't even like Fahadh Faasil.
You're the only person on the face of this planet
I thought him and everyone in this movie was trying way too hard. And I know that's kind of a thing in a lot of Indian cinema. The performances tend to be more performative, with some exceptions. They don't really go for subtle performances. That's usually not my thing. I'm watching Indian cinema all my life, so I've gotten used to it. I think this movie still went too far. They're not even at an 11 out of 10. They're going at like 15 the entire time.
I see the note, if we can call it that. Again, I feel like it was kind of meant to do that. It was kind of meant to be over the top. It was supposed to be like a play on what other movies pass off as normal.
Yeah.
At least that's how I read it. I don't have much to say about the writing other than the fact that I thought that Fahadh Faasil's dialogues were pretty interesting, because he switches between languages as he speaks. I did particularly enjoy that one scene where he was trying to make a point and he decided to do in like 3 or 4 languages just to make sure everyone got it. So considering this movie was super localized and was really subjective, I thought it would be a good idea to talk about who you're writing for. Like writing for a specific audience, and whether you think that's a good idea, or do you think that more universal stories do better? What's your preference? What's your taste?
I think it really depends on what movie you're making. We talked about Inside Out last week. Inside Out, you have to write for a general audience. Inside Out is about a girl going through puberty, growing up. That is something that everyone goes through, puberty. So it's meant to be a story for everyone. It's also a movie that has a huge budget.
Right.
You need to attract as many people to the theaters as much as possible to recoup that budget. That's actually, as much as I loved Furiosa, one of the mistakes that Furiosa did in terms of budget-wise was it's not a movie that's going to have 4-quadrant appeal.
Right. From the looks of it, this movie didn't seem very high budget.
I would say it's like pretty mid-budget.
You think so? Like, other than the action scenes, I didn't really even see like... Well, they built his house.
Yeah,
which I thought
action,
was a pretty big set piece.
I'm assuming that, like, I know Fahadh Faasil is a huge actor, so I'm assuming that he got paid.
Yes, but also this is a Fahadh Faasil Productions.
Got it.
So he probably paid for the movie. When the movie came out, there was a lot of hype for it, and it was surprisingly very well received up north also, which is why I kind of wanted to bring up this conversation, because again, this is a hyper-localized film. Like, people who didn't go to engineering college, for example, there's really not much to relate to in that film.
But is that the case? I never went to engineering college. 3 Idiots is a movie about.
Right, so I was just going to come to that. I was just going to say that I was surprised at just generally how good the reviews were on the internet after I watched the film. Because while I liked the film as a whole, it was hard for me to like pick out like, good moments or why exactly it worked.
I think I have that same opinion because obviously I was not a fan of the movie, and I looked up reviews and I could not really find specific things, because there's definitely times in movies where I haven't enjoyed it, and I will look up reviews or watch videos on YouTube, people talking about it, and that will inform me something that maybe I missed,
Right.
or maybe some hidden meaning that I didn't really get. And I never found that. Everything that I found, everyone was just talking about their experience.
Right.
Which makes sense, because I think cinema is primarily experience based. In my opinion, the biggest thing that, or the number one thing that a movie has to do above all else is get some kind of emotional reaction out of you.
I was going to say make money, but sure.
Well, I'm talking quality.
Right, sure, yeah.
But, and by that, and when people say emotional reaction, they automatically jump to moving to tears. What I mean is more any sort of emotional reaction. That could be fear if you're watching a horror movie. That could be making you laugh if you watch a comedy.
I think that's why, because we're talking about who are we writing for. I think as writers, it is important to understand that it's cool to write for a specific set of audience, and they will be the ones that get your film and appreciate and enjoy your film. But I also think it's important to write in language that appeals to anyone who's going to watch it. By appeals, I mean at least draws in anyone who's going to watch it. Because otherwise, it's kind of just lost on a part of your audience that you could have brought on board. That you could have had, enjoy your work. I think that's kind of primarily what was missing in this film.
When you say language, do you mean literally language?
No. I mean like film language. Like exposition, perhaps, Okay. I'm not talking about exposition in this film, but I'm talking about it in the larger context. You could write about something that's very LA, for example. And if someone not from LA watches it and completely doesn't understand it, they're automatically pulled out of the story. I think is doing a disservice to us and the story. So I think when we're presenting whatever thoughts we're trying to put out in the film, and again, this is not specific to this film because this was a little too lighthearted perhaps for this conversation. But I guess what I'm trying to say is when you're putting anything out, I think it benefits us to put it out in a way that more people will at least, like I said, be drawn in versus be pushed out.
I'm going to push back on that. If every movie tries to appeal to every single person, it's going to lead to things feeling stale.
Right. And I agree with that. I'm not trying to say that it should appeal to everyone. I don't think we should be making cookie cutter films that appeal to everyone in the world. I'm trying to say that the primary point of making a film, at least I think, is to make a point or to express some sort of opinion, emotion, desire, right? That is lost if your audience doesn't have the context of your film or your story. Say we're talking about a very specific ritual that they do in my family alone.
Yeah.
If I make the film about it and I don't explain that to anyone who's watching, then it's kind of lost. I guess that's what I meant when I said language of the film. That being said, I thought Aavesham is really not... I don't know if any of this applies to Aavesham because, again, it was meant to be a super lighthearted film. I thought it was interesting, the camera work was pretty good. They did, I think, spend a lot of time in coloring the film because I noticed that, the colors were popping.
Yeah, no, the visual, cinematography.
Yeah.
There was nothing... I can't knock that.
Right. I thought it looked pretty good. I thought the editing was pretty solid.
Yeah, it flowed.
It did. The dance numbers were very hyped. What did you think of those?
Are you talking about any in particular, or
the one where he dances alone, for instance?
Oh, in the house. I guess the choreography and all that was good, and he pulled it off. Again, I do think that it was meant to make you laugh.
Right, a lot of physical comedy for sure. So you remember that one scene where he's making these TikToks?
Yeah.
That went viral.
Yeah, no, I heard about that.
I thought that was very, very smart marketing because I feel like today a lot of songs are being written to become a thing that people use in TikTok. You can almost see it in the beats of the song. I think they made the smart choice of just having their character do a reel. I've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of people recreating that specific meme. And then, of course, the brand started doing it, and now it's no longer fun. But I thought that was genius marketing.
That is definitely a good way to get the word out there about your movie. But it's a question. Because I want to talk about specifically that scene with marketing and art. Because if you look at movies as kind of a commercial commodity, then I think that scene is great. And my question is, when you're looking at it from an art perspective, do you think that was made into reels for the purpose of, hey, we can double it?
No, I don't think so. Well, if you take Ranga as a character, right, he's a deeply lonely man. Doesn't have any friends, always pretends to be happy, I feel like it's like an interesting take on like masculinity almost.
Yeah.
Where he pretends to be this like hyper masculine person who's popular and powerful. And there's even that one scene where he's like, "You guys don't even like my Instagram."
Yeah.
I thought that was a really cool dialogue or a really cool scene. So I think it was just a character thing that they wrote. I fully believe that that character would go online and make reels and be very upset when people don't like it. I think that the worst thing that has happened to art is that it's been turned to content. All for people posting whatever they make, like brag about it, I totally get it. But as someone who does create and put stuff out, it's a very unfortunate way of like how now I feel like the value we attach has gone from, hey, I finished the school piece, to like, how is the piece doing out in the world? Which I think is very, very unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me a little sad.
But how much has that really changed? Because I feel like it's always like that, even with movies. How is this movie doing in the box office? With streaming, how is this movie doing in streaming?
No, I agree. I'm just saying that sucks. Because I think all of us would like to be able to go out and create like what we want to create.
Especially when I see a lot of fans talk about like box office, or any movie pages will always be talking about box office. I get why it matters to the studio, because if you're making a franchise, let's say you greenlight a movie and the goal is to make that into a trilogy. Well, if the first one crashes and burns at the box office, then you're going to be more hesitant to make the second one. I've noticed a lot of fans that get very invested, even in one-off movies, where there is not going to be a sequel. Speaking
of a sequel, people are demanding for a sequel to Aavesham.
Really?
They want a spin-off of just Ranga and his like henchmen. I thought that actor was pretty cool.
I think we did spend a little bit too much time with the three boys.
We did. I thought their performances weren't great, and I feel like that perhaps took it away. I was watching it over this morning to pick out some scenes, and I was wondering that it would have been so much of a cooler story if it was Ranga's story.
Yep.
If the inciting incident was these three kids coming in and like asking for help, and now he has a chance to be this big brother, I thought that would have been a very, very cool narrative.
Yeah, I really wish it was focused on him.
I am going to mention, so the teacher that he has is played by this actor called Mansoor Ali Khan, who is not a good person. He plays the villain in like multiple movies.
Yeah.
And he like went out and like said in an interview that he feels glad that he's able to do all these rape scenes with these actresses. He went out in public and he said it. And then he said that, I wish I get to do a scene like that with another and he like name dropped actresses that he would want to do these scenes with.
Oh.
Yeah, it became an outrage, and his career should have like crashed. But one of the actresses that he mentioned in this like drunken spiel that he went on tweeted saying it was disappointing and that she would never work with him and everything. And then a couple of days later, she tweeted again saying she forgave him. I thought, it sucks that like, people like this are still getting work.
Was he the old man?
He was the teacher.
Okay.
In the last thing, he's the one that comes to. He says, "Give me my image back." Like, I'm the one that.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, clearly not a memorable performance. His performances never are memorable. I think it's just important. I think that it's important to know like who your money is going towards when we pay to go watch movies like this.
Coming from someone who didn't really care for the movie, I do think the final fight scene, specifically when Ranga has the knife, I thought that was great.
Right.
I thought there was another scene with a knife earlier also. Again, I don't know why the action scenes didn't stand out to me, other than the parts where they're stabbing people with knives. Just the way it was choreographed.
Of course you enjoyed.
The way it was choreographed and done, and the fact that it was done by the actual actors was extremely impressive, because you can see his face the entire time. There's not running away to a stunt double. No, it's him. So it was just so fluid. That whole part worked extremely, extremely well for me.
Yeah, I thought it was a very cool scene, and definitely left me like at the edge of my seat. I think my favorite scene in the film was the one where he is upset that like he doesn't have real friends. They're only there because they're either afraid of him or because he pays them. And then he complains about the Instagram likes. I thought that was a very vulnerable moment for that character. He even like addresses it. He says, "You've never seen me cry."
And that is the movie that I think it should have been.
Right.
I think I might have actually liked it.
I think so too. I mean, let's pitch hard for it. Hopefully they'll make one. I also really like the scene with the it's called the Amma sentiment in South Indian films, especially Tamil, where others are built up to be these like almost like god-like figures, where like the character will do anything to impress. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess anything to like be in line with what their moms want.
Yeah.
I liked it when the mother of one of the characters called him, and it was a satirical take on the amma sentiment of all
Yeah.
of it. I thought that worked really well for me. I was laughing, so
Which
worked.
which part exactly?
It's when he's trying to attack the boys, and then one of the
Okay.
boys, his mom, she calls him.
Yeah. Okay. I was just wondering because I'm like, there's a lot of phone call scenes.
There are a
Because there
lot
was
of phone
also the
calls,
part where they call their moms after being expelled.
That was a cool scene also, I thought. Ashish Vidyarthi, I feel bad because like he's such a good actor, and he got like 2 minutes of like, screen time. Should we move on to ratings?
Let's do it.
As a reminder, we do this on the screenplay coverage scale. We're not trying to recommend the movie, we're just giving it a grade. I guess we say pass if it's really bad, if we say consider if it's mid, and we say recommend if we thought it was a good film.
I'm gonna give this a pass. This is one of those movies where I'm clearly in the minority of,
Right.
but it's not even one of those movies where I feel like I was able to appreciate it.
Right.
Did not like the zone of interest.
Right.
But there are things that about that movie that I could appreciate, even if I don't personally enjoy it.
Right.
I didn't really get that with Aavesham. It's probably not something I'm gonna remember
Right.
a couple weeks later.
No, I think it's a fair criticism. I think it's important. Like, you and I are not the target audience for the film. So I think it's important. I don't know. I still think that the opinion matters.
What do you say is the target audience of this film?
Probably someone who's a native Malayalam speaker, firstly. Someone who understands all the references that they're clearly doing. Maybe fans of Fahadh Faasil also. Which I am. I would give this like a consider. Maybe not a strong consider, I'd say a consider. Because it is a fun watch. Like, I enjoyed it. It did take me 2 days to finish the film. But, you know, I enjoyed it. It is streaming on Amazon if anyone wants to check it out. But I will say, if you like films like Aavesham that are like lighthearted and a little bit of a satirical take on films that we see, I want to recommend this film called LKG. It's by one of my favorite creators. His name is RJ Balaji, and that movie is a take on politicians. And he plays the titular character, and it's about him trying to win an election. And it's almost like a skit.
Okay.
That's how far they lean into the comedy of it. But he borrowed from like real events that happened,
Yeah.
and I thought it was hilarious.
But another movie that is kind of almost paper than action comedy where they're fighting for the sake of fighting that I really did enjoy was in 2018 there was a movie called Marit Ko Dard Nahi Hota.
Yep.
I know that this is an old. It wasn't an actual. It was like a line of dialogue in
I
a
think
movie,
it
right?
is.
Not
Yeah.
yeah, but there's a whole movie and it's about a guy who he literally does not feel pain when he fights, but he gets super dehydrated very, very easily, and that's why whenever he's fighting he has a camelback on his on his shoulders, and so every now and then he can just take a few sips of water and continue fighting. It's ridiculous, but it's super stylized. It's Vasan Bala is the director of Monica, Oh My Darling. And yeah, I just thought that movie was a ton of fun.
I heard a lot about it. Sounds pretty interesting. So what else have you been watching this week?
So I watched House of the Dragon, the first 2 episodes. I mean, that's the only ones that are out right now.
Yep. Why don't they just like put it all out? Is it because they want people to like stay subscribed? Like, what is the...
There's actually been studies on this, and you are going to retain an audience better when you do week by week release. As much as it might be like, oh, I want to like watch it all at once, it is literally better for your numbers, both on social media and on the platform. Sunday nights it comes out, we come into the office to talk about it at work. People over here, and they're like, if they haven't seen it, they're like, okay, there's only 2 episodes out. All right, I can catch up pretty easily. You kind of just feel it's very easy to miss a show when a whole season is out.
Very true, because I was talking to one of my friends this morning, and he was being so annoying about not watching this show. And I was just like, it's literally like, what is it, like 9 episodes at this point? Or like 12, including the first season?
I think 12.
It's nothing for the amount of like cool shit you get to see. But he was just like, oh no, it's too much of a time commitment. Grow up.
I also just get people talking about it like every week on social media.
I'm only complaining because I want more of it,
Yeah.
I do enjoy the discourse. And I remember when like the last season of Game of Thrones was coming, I had like deactivated all my socials because I did not want to like come across a spoiler.
Yeah, no, Sunday nights I start seeing the memes and I'm like, all right, time to get off Twitter until I see the episode. It's only Game of Thrones and House of Dragon where I've had this issue where I cannot get on social media until I see the episode.
Yeah, because people don't stop talking about it. It's a great show. I thoroughly enjoyed the episode. I haven't watched the latest one, so I'm just going to shut up. I watched 2 movies this week. One was Maharaja, which was Vijay Sethupathiy's 50th film. People have been like raving about it, and it's going to be at IFLA this weekend. He's also going to be at IFLA this weekend. Hopefully I'll get to go there and check out the panel he's doing. But I will say I didn't love the movie. I thought the movie could have been about literally anything else in the world, and the narrative would have worked. But they chose a triggering topic to make it about. It's just a personal opinion, I just didn't like it. I also watched a really interesting indie film. It was called Do I Strike You Like Lightning? It opened at IFLA this year, and it was really cool. It was a very low-budget coming-of-age musical. And it was a romantic. There was also like a romance track to it. I thought it was fabulous. I'm sure it's going to come out, at least on streaming, if not in theaters. I hope it does come out in theaters. When it does, I'll be sure to remind everyone of it to go check it out.
Awesome.
Well, with that, we come to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the Pages to Pixels podcast. I'm Keerthana.
I'm Rohan.
And we'll see you next week.
Thank you.